Right, it's Thursday, May 23rd. There is about an hour and 15 minutes to go in trading. I need to leave here for the day, and I'm done trading for the day. So I just thought I'd update what's going on the SPY. It could end up being kind of a daily recap. Obviously, today you could see we have a big 3-bar, taking out the high the previous day, the low of the previous day. The context of all this is based on what I have been discussing for the last few days, that we've had a range, 5 days coming into this, day today, with the highs right here of these last 5 days and the low right here. And we've been in this range. And the key was going to be, are you going to break out and continue, or break out and then fail? And obviously we failed, and that was evident right from the start. And that was kind of the key context coming into today after NVIDIA reported and things looked positive and the market was gapping up between, here's the 15-minute chart. I'm just trying to show you the high end of the pre-market range at the blue lines here. But right out of the gates, market moved immediately lower, and we were, and then followed through on bar 2, and that, was right here failing at the highs of the range. And I talked about how that was going to be critical, and opening price action led you to the failure. You had one push down, a little pause, second push down, so you had a good morning trade buying puts here into the middle of the range, into kind of the lows of the pre-market area, yesterday's close. That's where it paused. But typically when you fail at the one range, you go to the opposite extreme, to the low end. So you had a secondary trade in here on the 2 up, taking out liquidity, and then having the red bar, and then you work towards the lows of the day and the low of the range, which was down here. So we had this range, lows up here, highs up here, and opening price action showed you that failure right out of the gates. And now we're heading lower here, with about an hour to go in trading. Now the question is, what happens, with this bar? If it closes strongly red, you do expect to test lower tomorrow, but it's not really an actionable signal for continuation. Although, given the fact you might be below the halfway point of the week, you're right at the halfway point of the prior week on this failure. So if we hold in here, everything is possible just to hold, and we could just be making higher highs, lower lows, and by the end of the day, who knows, we come up in here, and you don't expect to go much lower. We have one more day to go to the week, 3-day weekend, everything else. So if we continue lower or close strongly red, then we get below the halfway point of this week, and we could maybe in one day be heading all the way down and getting an outside week to the downside, just the way you got an outside week, outside day on the daily chart. So you got to kind of see if you get below the midpoint of that week, which we're close to doing, but it all depends on how this bar closes. Obviously, it's trying to go strongly red here towards the last day of with one day to go into the 3-day weekend. So we'll see what happens here. The 15-minute chart is still moving lower, but let's see by the end of the day how it closes. That's going to kind of be important to determine whether you expect, follow through lower, or did we just come down and, you can see it more on the 15-minute chart. I think there's a gap in here to fill. Maybe we're just filling this gap and making lower lows, and who knows, maybe we chop around on Friday. But it might be a tricky day to trade tomorrow, given that there's no real expectations. Once you took out the low of this range, definitely you stay with the red bar and continue lower, but we'll just have to see how this bar closes, is my point. But anyway, so it was a very clear day today. Once you had the context in play of this range that you were failing early, I actually traded. If you look at my trades on the day, I was trading Tesla, Netflix, and Coinbase were my big trades, and I went with the downside on Tesla to start the session, and that worked out well on a downward trade. For a moment, I tried to buy Netflix on this inside bar failure that I thought might head higher, and I was able to scale out, set up a no-risk trade, and then break even. I shot videos on that, and then I went with the Coinbase puts as well, and they moved nicely from a secondary move towards the lows of the day. So the bias was definitely down, and I knew that on the SPY. Interesting big green bar here, red bar, outside bar here, and we're just going to have to see how it closes. But the theme today was taking out, failing to break out of the range that was identified, and you should have, if you were looking at the price action, you were kind of ready for either a strong breakout or a failure. And right out of the gates, the 15-minute chart showed you were failing, and that's it's all I could say. And then it's not surprising when you fail one end of the range, you go to the bottom of the range. And now with this big red bar in play, we're just gonna have to see how it closes. To me, if it does stay strongly red, I would expect maybe lower tomorrow, and who knows, maybe by the end of the week we get it. We're expecting to hit an outside week to the downside as well. So at all-time exhaustion risk, at all-time highs, and this is leading towards something. So we'll have to see. It's either broadening action, higher highs, lower lows, and then we kind of get stuck in here, or it's on this time frame, the broadening to the lower lows leads to then some more broadening, given that there is a pivot machine gun here on the daily chart. So as long as it stays red, I'm gonna be biased to the downside a little bit here, but it'll be interesting to see how things close tomorrow on a 3-day weekend.